Hello, and welcome to the Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail Machinist Guide. In this video, I will be covering the basics of the Machinist job at level 100. Machinist, alongside Bard and Dancer, is one of the 3 physical range jobs. Out of these 3, Machinist is considered the selfish DPS, whereas both Bard and Dancer's playstyles revolve around buffing your party members through dances and songs. Machinist, on the other hand, has no buffs and focuses solely on providing high burst damage to make the most use out of your party members' buffs. The Machinist job gauge consists of 2 bars, a red one for heat and a blue one for battery. It is important not to overcap these gauges by using your heat and battery generating abilities whilst your gauges are full. Since Machinist has a static rotation, this is less of a concern than you might initially think. Heat is generated by using your main combo actions and scattergun. Heat is spent on Hypercharge, overheating your ether pack, which buffs your single target GCD abilities by 20 potency and allows the usage of the Blazing Shot ability. Battery is generated by your final combo ability Clean Shot, Air Anchor, Excavator and Chainsaw. It is spent on summoning the Automato Queen, a robot companion that does a considerable amount of burst damage. The main rotation is fairly simple. You want to keep all your tool abilities, Drill, Air Anchor and Chainsaw, always on cooldown. These 3 abilities hit very hard, and letting them sit idle for an extended period of time could result in a missed usage over the course of the fight and might drift them outside of your party's raid buffs. 2 more important abilities to not let sit idle are Double Check and Checkmate. These 2 OGCDs have a short cooldown and can stack up to 3 times. Simply use these as you get them to keep the stacks low and to not overcap. Alongside these tools, you have 5 more major cooldowns to keep track of. The first one is Barrel Stabilizer. This OGCD grants you a free usage of Hypercharge, which we will discuss later. Additionally, it also allows you to use the GCD Full Metal Field, which is a high damage action that cleaves around its target. This action is guaranteed to crit direct hit. Use Barrel Stabilizer as soon shown in the opener and keep it on cooldown. The second major cooldown is Wildfire. This OGCD applies a debuff to a target which explodes after 10 seconds. The damage of this explosion scales with the amount of GCD abilities you hit the target with during its duration. This means that it's important to get the full amount of GCD abilities into the debuff before it expires. The correct way to do this leads us to the third major cooldown. Hypercharge. Spending your heat gauge, this ability puts you into overheat, increasing your single target damage and enabling the Blazing Shot ability. During the usage of Hypercharge, you gain 5 charges of Hypercharge. Each can be spent on 1 Blazing Shot. Blazing Shot will decrease the cooldown of both Double Check and Checkmate by 15 seconds. This means that in between your Blazing Shots, you will be required to weave in these 2 OGCDs to prevent them from overcapping. Do keep in mind that Blazing Shot has a 1.5 second GCD, so it is only possible to weave in 1 OGCD per cast. Next up, we have the ability Reassemble. This neat OGCD makes the next GCD ability a guaranteed critical strike direct hit. Use these on either Drill, Air Anchor, Excavator or Chainsaw. It's also important to try to keep one of these for your 2-minute burst windows. And it's also worth noting that Reassemble does not work on Full Metal Field. Lastly, we have Queen. Spending your battery gauge, you summon a robot that dashes in and auto-attacks a target for a set duration, leading into 2 finisher moves that deal a considerable amount of damage. It is important to note that her damage scales linearly with battery usage. That said, it is important to summon higher battery queens that use their finisher moves in the raid buffs of your party members, as this allows you to dump more potency into set buffs. When all of our cooldowns are used and we have nothing else to do, we have a 3-part combo that generates heat and battery gauge. This 3-part combo starts with Split Shot, goes into Slug Shot and ends with Clean Shot. Make sure to keep your GCD rolling by using your combo to fill out your rotation. The rotation of the Machinist job is static. This means that every pull the rotation is the exact same. There's no procs or RNG that changes anything. This makes it both very easy and difficult to learn at the same time, depending on what you're good at. Since the rotation is static, you can learn the exact order of abilities and simply press them to perform perfectly every single pull. This also means that there is no room for error, and letting your cooldown sit idle or spending your gauges at the wrong time can have serious impact on how much damage you do. There are 4 things we need to talk about to play our rotation perfectly. The first thing is your opener, which is highly flexible, allowing you to change the order of your actions to better facilitate the current encounter. That said, we typically default to the following opener. 5 seconds prior to pulling, use reassemble. 2 seconds prior to pulling, drink your tincture. Start air anchor and weave in double check and checkmate. Use drill, weave in barrel stabilizer. Use chainsaw and excavator. Weave in queen first, reassemble second. Use your second drill, weaving in double check and wildfire second. Use full metal field, weaving in checkmate and hypercharge. Now start your hypercharge burst by using blazing shot 5 times, finishing off the opener with a drill. In between each blazing shot, weave in a checkmate or double check to prevent overcapping. Here's an example of the opener being done. Following the opener, your 2-minute burst will look like this. The GCD before air anchor comes off cooldown, drink your tincture. Then use air anchor. If this air anchor puts you at 100 battery, then use queen instantly afterwards. If not, use queen before air anchor with the tincture. Fill in any gaps in your weave slots with checkmate and double check. Continue with drill, weaving in barrel stabilizer. Use chainsaw and weave in reassemble. Use excavator and full metal field. Weave in hypercharge, wildfire and start your blazing shot burst by using the action 5 times. Follow this up with a combo GCD. If you ended on a heated clean shot prior to air anchor, then you can omit this combo for a marginally higher burst. For comfort, you can simply always use a combo GCD here. After this combo, use another drill and weave in another hypercharge, allowing you to do another 5 blazing shots. Here's an example of that burst being done. Lastly, I'll talk a bit more in depth about your queen usage. As previously mentioned, you use your queen instantly at 60 battery gauge in your opener. After this, her usage will depend on what opener you used. For the standard opener, we use her at 90 battery in the first odd minute. Subsequent odd minute queen windows will use them at 50 and one at 60 or 70 battery to prepare for the even minute burst. This means 2 queens every odd minute. On the even minute burst, we can then always use a queen at 100 battery. During AoE encounters like dungeons, we adjust our rotation. Start by using your reassemble on chainsaw with any second reassembles on excavator. Use bioblaster instead of drill on 3 or more targets. Starting on 3 or more targets, also start using scattergun as a filler instead of your regular combo GCDs. Up to 4 targets, keep using blazing shots during hypercharge. From 4 targets upwards, start using your automatic crossbow instead. Flamethrower is also a gain over your filler from 4 targets upwards. Lastly, air anchor is no longer worth keeping on cooldown from 6 targets and up. Whilst Machinist is a selfish DPS, it does bring a fair amount of utility. Tactician is a 90-second cooldown which applies a 15-second buff, reducing damage taken by 15%. Since you do not have to target any enemy to apply this mitigation, this makes Tactician one of the stronger damage mitigations a DPS can bring. It is worth noting that both Bard and Dancer have their own Tacticians that are named Troubadour and Shield Samba. These 2 abilities are functionally the same as Tactician. This means that Machinists do not have an edge over these 2 jobs with this ability. These 3 abilities also do not stack, they instead override each other. Keep this in mind when playing in a party with another physical ranged. The second ability Machinist gains is Dismantle. This ability reduces the target's damage done by 10%. This is an extremely powerful mitigation ability. Try to use this to mitigate as much damage as possible in coordination with your healers. Alongside Tactician and Dismantle, we also have the standard Disciples of War job actions. These include Leg Race, which is a 40% slow that lasts for 10 seconds. Second Wind, a potent self-heal with a long cooldown. Foot Grace, a 10-second long root that disappears when the target takes damage. Paladon, a wraith-wide buff that increases everyone's movement speed. This buff does not work in combat though, so use this only in pre-pull to help your melees get to the boss and in between dungeon pulls. Head Grace, which is an interrupt on a short cooldown. And lastly, Arm's Length, which is your knockback immunity. If you've learned something new from this video, consider subscribing and liking the video. I'd like to thank the other Machinist theory crafters in helping me make this video.